Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. My name is Muskan Zulfikar, and today my presentation topic is learning teaching method through literature. So first of all, what is learning with literature? Approaches in teaching through literature. So first of all, I just want to say that what is learning with literature, and what is learning with literature. So when students study literature, they learn to appreciate words and their power. They travel to other realms and times through the text they read. They understand about their own culture and others. They learn to empathize with character, to feel their joys and pain. So here the teaching method, so modern 18 to 1980 to provide a framework or sequence of operations to be used when we come to actualities. So to provide a framework, it's mean that teaching approach, the meaning of this is to provide a framework or sequence of operations to be used when we come to actualities. Now the importance, that what is the importance of learning teaching method through literature. So acquainted with variety of approaches, techniques, activities, and the second one is stimulate and develop students interest that and knowledge of literature, that as I said in the start, that we study literature, they learn to appreciate words and their power. So it's mean that when we learn the words, and so we have the power that how we use these words in which place or in which studies. So actually literature is a power. So knowledge of literature and the teaching approach. So here there are six approaches in the teaching of literature. So there are they are the first skill based approach, information based approach, language based approach, personal response approach, paraphrastic approaches, moral philosophical approach, and stylistic approach. So first of all, we will discuss the skill based approach. So skill based approach, so here we gain information, verifying existing knowledge, critique writer ideas or writing style, enjoyment, enhanced knowledge, language being read. So here in the skill based approach, we mean that whenever we studied through literature, or whenever we studied, that we gain informations, okay. And the next one, verifying existing knowledge. So it's mean that whenever we read or whenever we learn, so we learn a lot of knowledges or critic writer ideas. If someone, we criticize the ideas of the writers and the writing style, we just not use reading just for gaining the knowledge, and also for enjoyment we use we use this method. And enhanced knowledge, language being read. It's mean when we read the books, we read the articles, so we learn the language through this knowledge, we learn the language also. Now the purpose of readings, that what is the skill based approach, it was the one that it was the mistaken by slides mistake. So the purpose of reading is determines the approach to reading comprehensions, text, letter, words, sentences, paragraphs. Readers use knowledges, skills, and strategies to determine what that meaning is. That was the purpose of reading. So what is the best way to teach literature? So one way to motivate your student to do the reading and come to class ready to discuss them is to give daily reading quizzes. You can either create simple short answer quizzes or assign writing prompts that will test your students' knowledge of the reading. So give these quizzes at the beginning of every class. So it was also the best way of teaching literature. And what is the importance of literature? So here literature allows a person to step back in time and learn about life on earth from the ones who walked before us, and we can gather a better understanding of culture and have a greater appreciations of them. We learn through the ways history is recorded in the forms of manuscript and through speeches itself. So here we discuss the another verifying existing, we here discuss the information, the skill, the approaches, the skill based approach, and here uh, I clarify. Now the second one is information based approach. So information based approach mean that teaching knowledge about literature, that what is literature, why we study literature. So teaching knowledge about literature and source of informations, that what kind of sources and what kind of informations we use, examine history, historical background, that if I let's get example of Chaucer, that if we want to know about Chaucer, or if we want to know about the 14th century, so here he wrote a book, Canterbury Tales. So if we learn the book Chaucer, which wrote by Chaucer, Canterbury Tales, so we know the background, or we know the history of the 14th century. So characteristic of literary movements also, and literary movement characteristics also, you people know the information based, the language based approach, that why, that through language how we learn. So how we approach or incorporate language and literature syllabus by studying the language. Personal response approach, thematic approach, also the personal response approach is also called the thematic approach. Now, that encourages learner active involvement emotionally, intellectually, encourages learner active involvement, and here the emotionally, intellectually. Now, the draw one experience, feelings, opinion, also known as thematic approach. That I said that literature allow a person to step back in time and learn about life on earth from the one who walked before us. It's mean that literature allow us, it help us to talk about grammar and sentence, sorry literature allow us that how we talk, or how literature is the power, they learn to appreciate words and power. If literature is just like a power, if we want to write, it's mean that literature is not a bound, there is no boundaries in literature. Draws experience, feelings, opinion, also known as thematic approaches, and text chosen according to the same theme compared to learner. Paraphrastic approach. So paraphrastic approach means that surface meaning of text, paraphrase, reword the story in simpler language. It's mean that if we saw the old languages, in the old languages, or if we saw the old English, so it was a very we face a kind of difficulty, so we reword the story in simpler languages, translating it into another language and beginner of target languages. Moral philosophical approach. So moral philosophical, read a particular literary text, search for moral values, awareness of values, assist student to understand themes in future reading. Now the stylistic approach, the last one approach is closer reading, closer understanding, appreciate of literary text, combination of linguistic analysis and literary critic also. So it was all about my presentation, that through literature we learn a lot of things. Like if we saw the I give the example that if we want to learn the languages, or if you want to learn the old, or if you want to compare the old or new English language, so we can, because in the old English this is different, and now the present English is different. So it was all about my presentation. Thank you.